Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. In this video I'll be previewing semi-final 2 taking place in Kolkata between South Africa and Australia. Starting off with South Africa, they've secured a second place finish after the league phase, and on the two losses they suffered. I thought in the first loss they threw that game away against the Netherlands, where the Netherlands were 140 odd for 7 in 30 something overs with 9 overs to go, and over 100 runs to score in the last 9 overs, which tilted the game in the Netherlands' favour. And against India, I didn't think South Africa had too much of a chance to win that game before the game started. They got selection calls wrong, predictably in my view. And generally, with the way I thought the game would go, once Rochan won the toss and chose to bat first, I didn't think they would win that game, and you saw how they lost that game. But apart from that, they've been a dominant force. They've put on a show on more batting-friendly surfaces, and teams have put them into bat for some reason in those games. So they still had a very good league phase, and they'll be hoping that they can win this game, progress into the final. It'll be a tall order for them, I think, against an Australian side on the surface. But I'll be giving my view on how they should approach things. Regarding how I think their 11 should go, I've gone at Quinton de Kock and Turnbull Vuma to open the batting if he's fit. Rassie van Edison at number 3, Aiden Markham at 4, Henrik Klaassen at 5, David Miller at 6, Marco Jansen at number 7, Keshav Maharaj 8, George Coetzee at 9, Kagiso Rabada at 10, and Tabraiz Shamsi at number 11. And on the captain, he suffered a hamstring injury against Afghanistan in their previous game and experienced discomfort when scoring the 20-odd that he scored. Of course, they'd want him to play this game. I think he didn't go for scans after maybe an initial scan, and he's training with the squad now, which is a good thing. And in terms of players who could replace him, Reza Hendricks would take his place in the side if Bavuma isn't fit for this game. But when you're comparing both those players as batsmen, they're both touch players. And like I'd said when previewing and reviewing the India versus South Africa game, which took place at this venue, I think the touch players would have a role to play at this venue, where until the 40th over, you should look to set things up before exploding the final 10. So whether Bavuma or Reza Hendricks play, I think the way they play would benefit South Africa, but of course, from a South African point of view, they'd want their captain to be fit for that game. And I think Tabraiz Shamsi has got to play in this game. He was bafflingly rested in the previous game along with Marco Jansen, and that game was an opportunity for him to get a good performance under his belt after a tough game against India at this venue where he went for 72 runs. And if they say, right, he went for runs in that game, maybe we could play four seamers, that would be the wrong way to go, because apart from Smith and Labuschagne, and especially on a surface that offers assistance for the spinners, the other batsmen in the Australian lineup don't like playing against spin as much, especially against the left-arm wrist spin that Tabraiz Shamsi would bring to the table on a turning surface. So if they go by how he went against India, where he missed his lengths and therefore went for runs, and if they drop him in this game, it'd be a huge mistake, so he has to play. And finally, George Coetzee has to play this game. You saw he didn't play against India. I didn't understand that at all, because like I said, you need pace to be successful at the Eden Gardens. What do? They played Lungi Ngidi predictably. I'd said he can bowl in the low 140s, but he doesn't. He chooses to bowl slow ball. You saw what happened in the game against India and the game against Afghanistan as well. But bowling slow balls on the Eden Garden surface first up was, I thought, quite a big mistake, but I knew that mistake would be committed. And you saw how he fared. And Marco Jansen, he's got the pace to be successful on the surface, but he doesn't bowl as full as he should do on the surface. He bowls a bit shorter and looks to get that movement while extracting bounce. There wouldn't be as much bounce on this surface for him to extract compared to other venues. So how he went against India as well, where he bowled the shorter length, didn't bowl as quickly, and he went for runs. So if they don't play George Coetzee, who did very well in the previous game, and if they play Ngidi and Marco Jansen and open the bowling with those two, Borna and Travis Head are destructive players and will take opportunities when offered to them. And you saw what Rohit Sharma did in the game against South Africa at this venue, and those two may do that if the opportunity is presented. So it's vital that South Africa get their selection calls right. For some reason, they've brought on Kagiso Rabada at first change instead of giving him the new ball. And this has happened throughout the tournament. I still don't get why it is happening. You saw in the game against India where Ngidi, I knew he would use those options when he bowled on that surface, and I don't think he should be opening with the new ball anyway. If you got a Kagiso Rabada in the side, Marco Jansen and Rabada would be a potent opening combination, and Rabada's got the pace to be successful on the surface and he utilizes it as well. You saw how well he bowled even when he was introduced at first change when he's playing a defensive role in the game against India. him and Maharaj were the only two that posed a challenge to the Indian batsmen. But because at the start that they got, all they had to do was manage those two, and then they got the run. So I know Rabada probably won't open the bowling in this game because he hasn't opened the bowling thus far, but it really isn't a great move that they're making him bowl at first change rather than giving him the new ball. On the batting, there isn't too much to talk about on the batting because unless the only conundrum is whether Bavuma or Reza Hendricks will play based on the fitness of Sam Bavuma. But apart from that, these are the batsmen that they will select. In terms of how they would go, Quinton de Kock, yes, I think they'll rely on him on the surface. Rashi van Didderson's got that game where he can graft up front and then explode. That's usually how he goes about things. Bavuma or Reza Hendricks, a touch player, going to be helpful on the surface. Eden Markham at 4, how will go against the wrist spinner Adam Zampa? We'll have to see. Henrik Claessen's got front foot and back foot play against the spin. And David Miller off late is in batting time when he walks out to bat. So while it looks good, I'll still say this isn't the type of surface that they'd like to bat on. And with how well Henrik Claessen plays spin, you even saw in the previous game he played a very ordinary shot. So even Henrik Claessen wouldn't like to bat on a surface like this. I feel Australia, even though they've got the one frontline spinner and Glenn Maxwell, and it's similar to what South Africa have got as well, I still feel those two, with the fact they've been in very good form leading up to this game, they will still be a threat for the South African batting side. So the key here is Bavuma or whoever's captain, Aidan Markham potentially, they have to win the toss and bat first. And the problem for South Africa is that whether Bavuma's captain or Markham's captain, I think in this side, more than which player's captain, the coaching staff seem to be taking the majority of the decisions, and especially the selection calls. And they shouldn't make the same mistakes that they did against India. Otherwise, they'll find it difficult in the side. They'll find it difficult in this game against an Australian side that I think have a slight edge when playing on the surface in this game. On Australia, they've won 7 in a row to secure a third place finish. I'm not surprised by this, as even if they had lost the third game of their campaign against Sri Lanka, which had played in Lucknow, considering the nature of the surfaces that they'll be playing on in the last 6 games of their league phase, I backed them to win all 6 and qualify for the semi-finals. They've won their last 7, and after 2 very ordinary games at the start, they've been looking like a threat. And on their 11, I've gone with David Warner and Travis Head to open the batting with Steve Smith at 3 and Marnus Labuschagne at number 4. I've gone with, if I check here, I've gone with Mitchell Marsh at 5, Glenn Maxwell 6, Josh Inglis at number 7, I think they'll go with him, Mitchell Stark at 8, Pat Cummins at 9, Josh Hazelwood at 10, and Adam Zampa at number 11. Yes, they've won 7 in a row, so they're unlikely to change their side. However, they've got to focus on a couple of selection conundrums as well as how they structure their lineup. And what I mean by that is, you see in the last 3 games that Mitchell Marsh has batted at 3, even with Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne in the side. If he bats at 3 in this game on a tough surface where you've got to set things up until the 40th over, especially when batting first, you will struggle. That's why Steve Smith and Labuschagne have to bat at 3 and 4, and I've got Mitchell Marsh to bat at 5. Where I think you'd be wasting someone like a Marnus Labuschagne, who, if Mitchell Marsh bats at 3, you'd think he would bat at 5. And that would mean in the last 10 overs, you're going with 1 power hitter short because he's already been dismissed. And you've got Glenn Maxwell, who is a very good spin attacker, but then you've got Josh Inglis, who's not been in great form. So if you're going with 1 power hitter short, then there's a lot of pressure on Glenn Maxwell because he's got the recent form. You'll notice that I'd said they'd go with Josh Inglis at number 7. And before comparing him with who he'd be competing with to fill that keeper batsman role in the side, which would be Alex Carey, I don't know why they dropped Alex Carey 2 games into this campaign when, if you dropped him for his batting, in the first 2 games, the batting highlights for Australia were Warner and Smith scoring 40 odds in the first game, and then Marnus Labuschagne scoring a 30 odd in the second game when the net run needed to be preserved. So there's nothing much to speak of there. So dropping him for his batting doesn't make sense. If you're throwing him because he had a bad day behind the stumps, anyone can have a bad day behind the stumps. Alex Carey's been a key member in the ODI and the Test side. So throwing him after 2 bad games, well, when with the bad, everyone had a bad game, and behind the stumps, if he had maybe 1 bad game and you drop him, I don't get that at all. They won't make the change of bringing him back now because they've won 7 in a row since they lost those 2 games. But I just don't get dropping him in the first place. And secondly, when comparing Josh Inglis and Alex Carey, I think a form may aid this as well, but also in the way these two look to go about things. I'd compared Ravindra Jadeja and Marco Jansen at number 7, where I'd said, at this venue, how often would you walk out in a situation where you have to explode at number 7, which is what Marco Jansen would look to do. And you saw Jadeja in that game against South Africa. He scored 29 or 15 where he didn't break a sweat. He caressed the ball over the boundary. Against Sri Lanka and Mumbai, 35 out of 24, scoring a 4 and a 6, and then going about things in 1s and 2s. And going about things in 1s and 2s along with the occasional boundary would be how you get the runs at the death at this venue. Josh Inglis is more of a basher. Alex Carey has got that game where he can caress the ball and get a few boundaries here and there and do what someone like Ravindra Jadeja can do at number 7. In terms of how they play spin, Josh Inglis is a decent player of spin, but I've seen more of Alex Carey with the bat, and I'd prefer him to bat on tough surfaces to bat on, such as in this one. So I don't think they'll bring Alex Carey to the side because Inglis has played, I think, the last 7 games, but I feel Alex Carey would be a better option on this surface because of the reason that I've said. If they play Josh Inglis, they may find a situation where if they send Mitchell Marsh at 3, he's dismissed, and you've got one less power hitter to capitalize at the end. There'll be a lot of onus on Glenn Maxwell because Josh Inglis hasn't been in great form after the half century he scored against Sri Lanka in the first outing of his campaign. So Australia wouldn't want that situation to materialize, which is why I said how they structure the lineup and the team they select would be vital. They won't play Carey ahead of Inglis, but if they send Marsh at 3 and he's dismissed, they'll find themselves in a point of precariousness going into the last 10 overs of the innings. Mitchell Starc was rested in their previous game and Sean Abbott took his place. On a batting-friendly Pune surface, he went for 61 runs in 10 overs and picked up 2 wickets, which was a good outing. Mitchell Starc hasn't been in any sort of form in this campaign, but the surface at the Eden Gardens will suit his style of bowling where he bowls with pace, looking to hit the full lengths and trying to extract some movement, where, especially when bowling up front, you need pace to be successful at this venue. And Sean Abbott's decently quick, hits the seam, and I think in terms of pedigree, they may play Mitchell Starc. However, he hasn't been inspiring any sort of confidence throughout this campaign. Sean Abbott went well in the previous game. And whether Starc or Sean Abbott plays, you saw in the previous game when Starc was rested, it gave them the opportunity to do something which I thought should have happened from the first game, and that was Pat Cummins opening the bowling. It's a case where, if you consider the first choice attack being Starc, Hazelwood and Pat Cummins, then Cummins has had to play second fiddle where the first two have taken the new ball, and Pat Cummins' strength is bowling with the new ball. And you've seen even in 2019 in that World Cup when he played against Pakistan, he got the opportunity to bowl the new ball and he was very good. And it's a case where, because the other two have their strength is also bowling in that phase of the game, I feel he's had to take a back step and be a defensive bowler through the middle overs. Now, whether Starc plays or whether Sean Abbott plays, what I would do is if Mitchell Starc plays, Mitchell Starc should open the bowling alongside Pat Cummins and Josh Hazelwood should be the middle overs enforcer. Now, you've seen Kagiso Rabada not getting the new ball when South Africa have been playing, and I think it's a ridiculous decision. However, you saw at this venue, even though he had to play the defensive role, he bowled very well and got some seam movement. Josh Hazelwood is a master of hitting the length, and I'm sure he'll be able to bowl well throughout the middle overs. And if Sean Abbott plays, then you saw in the previous game, Pat Cummins took the new ball, bowled the second over of the game. So I think that makes it slightly easier for Australia. Sean Abbott plays, but even if Mitchell Starc plays, I feel Pat Cummins has to open the bowling to get the best out of him in the side. And you've got Adam Zampa, who's been in great form after the first 2 games. I think he's got 17 wickets or so, and he'll be vital on the surface, where you've got him and Glenn Maxwell, who has been a very good economical spinner in this tournament. He's quite a clever off spinner, and he will be vital on the surface as well. Those two would be the main spinners for this side, with Travis Head having to bowl if necessary, but I don't think he'll bowl too much. Whoever wins the toss should look to bat first. And when comparing top 4s, for South Africa, you've got Quinton de Kock, Bavuma if he plays, Rassie van der Dussen and Aiden Markram. On Quinton de Kock, he goes in one game most of the time. He's been consistent taking the attack to the opposition, so it gives you faith to do something here. Bavuma is a strokeful player who plays risk-free cricket, and if you're comparing him and Reza Hendricks, like I said, you're not losing too much in terms of orthodox players, touch players who, while Quinton de Kock is going well at one end, both those two can play second field, so you're not losing too much there whoever plays. Rassie van der Dussen, his blueprint in ODIs is to soak up the pressure and then explode, so he'll be good in this game. He'll be vital for them this game. And Aidan Markram at 4, he's got a bit of a weakness against wrist spin, and if Adam Zampa bowls on a surface like this and he faces him, we'll have to see how he goes. For Australia, you've got David Warner and Travis Head opening the batting with Steve Smith at 3 and Marnus Labuschagne at 4. David Warner's got both gears. Travis Head's a bit of a dasher. Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne are master manipulators of spin. And I think in terms of what each top 4 will be facing, if Mitchell Starc plays, you've got a case where if he spreads it around like he has been doing in this campaign, South African batsmen off late, mostly in ODIs and Tests, when they've played against Mitchell Starc, they have scored of him, especially Quinton de Kock and I think Aidan Markram as well. So if Mitchell Starc plays and gets it wrong, the South African batsmen will fancy their chances. Josh Hazlewood, if he opens the bowling, even though I'd like him to bowl in first inning because I think he'd be able to do that as well. I think he'll be a tough bowler to get away. He was in the low 140s, which would help on the surface or hitting in length. And Pat Cummins, I think he should open the bowling, but he may not open the bowling, especially if Mitchell Starc plays. So overall, I think Australia have the stronger top 4 because you've got a case where, yes, Travis Head's a bit of a dasher, but David Warner's got both gears. And in terms of manipulating the spin, you got Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne when compared with Rassie van der Dussen, who is good at soaking up pressure and then exploding, but is he as good of a player of spin as Steve Smith? I don't think he would be. And Aidan Markram against Adam Zampa compared with Tabraiz Shamsi versus Marnus Labuschagne, Keshav Maharaj versus Marnus Labuschagne. Who's more likely to prosper in that battle? I feel Marnus Labuschagne is more likely to prosper. So in terms of the top 4, I'd say Australia have got the edge. Now in comparing 5, 6 and 7, you've got Heinrich Klaasen, David Miller and Marco Jansen for South Africa, as opposed to Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell and Josh Inglis for Australia. Like I said, at this venue, especially when batting first, you have to take the game until the 40th over and then look to explode. And I feel the key will be, if the top 4 are dismissed with about 15 overs to go pretend, then you've got to look at 2 aspects. Which of the 3 will take their side to 40 overs before exploding, and which the 3 will be able to take advantage of the last 10 overs. So you've got Heinrich Klaasen, who's got front foot play and back foot play against spin, a vital player in this game. David Miller off late has been batting time quite often. Marco Jansen is more of an explosive player in white ball cricket, so we have to see how he goes. He's played a few knocks and tests where his temperament has shown, but we'll have to see how he goes in these conditions where he'd much rather bat on a surface like Mumbai. And for Australia, you've got, if Mitchell Marsh bats at 3, which I don't think will be the greatest thing, especially if they're batting first, but in this case, pretend if he bats at 5, you've got Mitchell Marsh, Glenn Maxwell, who Mitchell Marsh against spin, Keshav Maharaj is so high once against India, how will he go, you don't know. And he'll be facing Tabraiz Shamsi as well, hopefully if he plays. Glenn Maxwell is a very good spin attacker, but the onus will be on him. And Josh Inglis hasn't been in the greatest of form, he's more of a dasher. So overall, in terms of, I think there's one player from each side, Marco Jansen and Josh Inglis, where they would be looking to attack the bowling more so, and would they be as equipped in facing the spinner on this surface? You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think Mitchell Marsh would play spin anywhere near as well as Heinrich Klaasen. So in terms of responsibility during the middle phase, I'd have to say South Africa have a slight edge with Heinrich Klaasen and David Miller. On the bowling, George Coetzee has to play ahead of Lungi and Giri. And if you think Marco Jansen and Rabada will open the bowling with George Coetzee at first change, it looks like a decent attack there. Maharaj bowled well against India, and Tabraiz Shamsi will have to hit his lengths this time, unlike what he did against India where he went for 72 runs. If he does that, then I think this will prove to be a decent spin attack, especially on this type of side. So you've got Aidan Markram as well to bowl a few overs if needed. And apart from Labuschagne and Smith and Glenn Maxwell being a spin attacker, the others in this Australian side wouldn't like facing quality spin on the surface. So if Tabraiz Shamsi gets it right, then South Africa will be a potent force with the ball in this game if they play George Couture. Because if Lungi Ngidi plays and Marco Anton Lankatili doesn't bowl full enough on the service, even though he's got the pace, David Warner and Travis Head can take on the bowling at the start, and you saw what Rohit Sharma did. If 90 odd is achieved in the first 10 overs because the bowling hasn't been great, then what we saw against India may repeat in this game. So that's why it's important where if Australia win the toss and choose to bat first, South Africa have got to be spot on with a new ball. And on the Australian attack, if Mitchell Starc does play, South African batsmen, like I've said, whether it be in ODIs and in Tests, have fancied facing him. And if he's off cutter in this game, it wouldn't be great for Australia. So give away easy runs if South Africa have to bat first. And I feel if Pat Cummins opens the bowling, Australia will be a stronger suit, as it would optimise him better, and Josh Hazlewood would still be able to bowl in the middle overs. But if Mitchell Starc plays, more likely Josh Hazlewood would open the bowling alongside Starc, and Pat Cummins will have to play a defensive role, which would go in favour of South Africa. Of course, Adam Zampa and Glenn Maxwell would be threats on the surface. Players from both sides generally don't like playing against quality spin, especially on a surface like this. So both Zampa and for South Africa, I'd say that Shamsi has to be that strike bowler on the day. Both those two would fancy their chances. And you've got Maharaj and Glenn Maxwell as economical bowlers. So overall, I think both sides bowling could be good on the day. Like I said, it depends on who they play and where they bowl certain bowlers. So I think based on what I've said, Australia does have an edge going to this game. But yeah, let's see what's in store. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, share with your friends. Remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?